Hey ladies and gents, welcome back. This is going to be part 2 to What If Naruto Was the Dragonborn. So, with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe. Also make sure to check out my Discord. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. So, yeah, let's just get into the new material. I don't really feel like doing a recap, especially considering I literally made the last part of this yesterday, so just go watch the fucking video. That's all I'm gonna say. So yeah, with that being said, let's get into the new material of the actual What If itself. So with the 4 people on Naruto's squad actually entering the Forest of Death, yeah, that's right, 4 people, because we absolutely cannot forget about the person that I almost forgot the name of already and totally did not have to go back to look at the recording to remember exactly what I called the dragon bitch, but we absolutely cannot forget about Kohaku, because she's a new character that I introduced, and she for some reason got put on their team because I fucking said so. So she's also like a dragon bitch because, you know, that's just how it works. Like, obviously she like, she's a dragon. Let's be honest here. Like, come on. We can't argue with that. So anyway, all 4 of them would enter the Forest of Death because they already, you know, they did the written part of the exams because, you know, they're just chads like that. So with them entering the actual Forest of Death itself, they would begin, and it would begin pretty normally. Because we have to also remember that Sasuke is still placed on their team, meaning that Orochimaru is still basically going to attack. So Naruto goes off and he's like, I gotta take a piss, I'll be right back, you guys. And he goes and he ends up going to the bathroom. So as he's going to the bathroom, obviously the massive snake would end up attacking, just like it normally would, because, you know, it's a massive snake. It wants to attack. It's like, I don't know what I'm trying to say anymore. So this massive snake would try attacking Naruto. He would swallow Naruto whole, but then Naruto would literally just burst out. Because again, Naruto can control the natural energy around him. There would be natural energy inside of the snake, and outside of the snake, he can just fucking explode it with fire, because Naruto's just freaking mega chad. He's just built different. That's all I gotta say about him. So Naruto pretty easily would escape this snake, and it would actually happen a pretty decent amount quicker than it would in the original. He'd start heading over towards the rest of his squad, just because for really one reason alone. He might be actually a little bit worried about them because, well, obviously he'd be a little worried about them. He was attacked by a massive snake that he deciphered was actually a summoning creature. So he would be expecting them to have some kind of confrontation. So as he's running over there, he sees off in the distance that he's actually arriving there sooner. Orochimaru is just about to, you know, jump in as Naruto, and he sees Orochimaru going and talking to them. So Naruto gets over there. He speedily gets over there, and Orochimaru was not expecting Naruto to be so quick about taking down this snake, as Naruto kicks Orochimaru and sends him flying across, as part of his face begins to, like, peel off, revealing that he isn't actually Naruto, or, you know, Orochimaru is that Naruto is Naruto, because Naruto is Naruto. Yeah. So Sakura would be like, "Oh my god, no, that's, but you're Naruto," and Naruto's just like, "Are you a fucking idiot or something? I'm Naruto. That's an imposter. You can literally tell by the fact that he's peeling his fucking face off. Just look at the guy. He's not me." And, you know, Sakura would be like, "Oh, maybe you have a point there." She's kind of embarrassed because she's a fucking idiot, and. So, obviously speaking, Naruto would begin battling, along with some of his other squad mates, mainly Sasuke and the dragon bitch, because I don't really like Kohaku. I did not forget her name almost again, don't mind me. So, they would begin fighting. Sakura would be in the background, just kind of chilling there, shivering in her timbers, because she's Sakura. So, she's kind of just standing in the background while the other 3 try to actually end up fighting off this Orochimaru. All 3 of them would be much stronger than their original selves, even like Naruto, after, like, he entered as, like, QB whatever shit and, like, was taking on Orochimaru. Naruto would be stronger than that version, so, like, he's obviously gonna be, he's gonna be mega chatting this actual fight, with Sasuke being the next one in the little battle in terms of, like, battle power and everything like that. Actually, did I say, I think I said in the last part that Sasuke was slightly stronger. I don't really care what I said in the last part. They're pretty even in terms of everything. With Kohaku actually kind of just taking up the rear. Basically, you know, she's trying to help out quite a bit, but, like, she can't really do that because these 2 have been used to fighting for a long time, where she hasn't really done anything. She didn't even join the academy up until, like, a few weeks ago, so she's pretty new to this whole ninja shit. So obviously she would be she'd be a little bit weaker. Not necessarily too much weaker. The main issue with her is that she wouldn't really had confidence in her ability to actually try to win this battle. She thinks that they would just easily take her down, which it might be true. It's fucking Orochimaru, but like that's her main issue, is the lack of confidence she has in her own abilities and everything like that. So as this fight would be going on, they hear something in the background. It's a really loud roar, and they're wondering exactly what it is. Everybody stops their battle, and even Orochimaru is kind of surprised to hear it. But then he recognizes the noise. They shouldn't be coming this far. That usually they stay in their own valley. And he looks up the sky now, and he sees a massive dragon flying overhead. I said I was gonna do it. I said I was gonna introduce dragons, and you know what? I fucking did introduce dragons, so that's all I'm saying. So, obviously, this dragon would be flying overhead, and it would begin flying down towards the two Dragonborns, because, you know, there's fucking two of them now. And, you know, that's just, like, what has to happen, because, I mean, like, come on. So, the dragon would start flying down, and it would begin attacking Orochimaru, and everybody would be pretty surprised by this. They're like, oh, why is it signaling out somebody? And dragons are obviously very powerful creatures. They're very strong comparatively to most humans and everything like that. I'd even say that they're, like, not necessarily on par with like a tailed beast or something of that sort, but they're really up there in terms of all that different, like, they're probably like all around the level of some, like, they're like, yeah, I'm just gonna say they're about the level of like a tailed beast. They're just that fucking strong. That's like the main reason Naruto is gonna be so strong, is because he's a tailed beast, but like small. No, I don't think you know. Well, it doesn't matter. So, basically speaking, this dragon would begin attacking Orochimaru, and it would eventually, it wouldn't, like, massively overpower Orochimaru or anything like that, but it would be a pretty even fight. Everybody would be watching this and like, oh, what's happening with this? Well, why is this dragon just randomly start attacking everybody? Everybody's kind of confused by this. They're like, what the fuck? That's just a fucking dragon. It started attacking in the middle of the Chunin exams. So obviously all the, you know, like, people who are like holding the Chunin exams would see this massive dragon that flies in, and everybody's like, oh shit. They go and they get the third Hokage, and he would actually eventually show up, because obviously dragons are considered a very high threat. They're very powerful, and if a dragon went rogue or something of that sort, it could pretty easily take down it could take down entire villages if it wasn't taken care of quickly by somebody really powerful. So this person obviously would be like Hiruzen. He'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go take care of this massive dragon threat. So he shows up and he sees his old student actually taking on this dragon. He's like, the fuck is Orochimaru doing here? What the fuck is this shit? He's a little bit concerned about the fact that Orochimaru is here, and if Orochimaru had something to do with the fact that this fucking dragon is attacking the village or anything like that. But for the time being, they're going to take down the main enemy, that actually being the dragon. They'll take care of the human threats later on, that human threat being Orochimaru. So Orochimaru would eventually manage, very barely actually, to actually end up taking down the dragon. He'd be severely weakened at this point, and Hiruzen would end up walking up to him. He'd be about to grab him and like try to take him into custody, but Orochimaru's just like, fuck that shit, and he gets the hell out of there. Not actually being able to put a curse mark onto basically Sasuke, because, you know, he never really got the opportunity. He was fighting a fucking dragon. Of course he didn't get the opportunity to do so. So Orochimaru flees, leaving everybody kind of just chilling there, like wondering exactly what the fuck just happened. And here's what it would kind of explain exactly what that was. That was a dragon, for one. Everybody's like, yeah, no dip, Sherlock. It's like fucking 20 meters long, flying up over there in the sky. And Hiruzen's like, oh, well, I mean, it's not flying anymore, but, you know, it's kind of dead on the ground. Everybody would walk up. And yeah, I'm just like getting past that point. They'd walk up to this dragon and begin examining its body, wondering exactly what the fuck, just like, they're really confused, but I don't know why I keep saying fuck. I'm gonna try to stop saying that so much, like, I should probably do that. So basically, they all end up walking up to this dragon, and it's pretty big. It's a big dragon. It's a dragon, for God's sake. It'll be big. And as they walk up to it, they notice that it's actually still alive, just barely. Hiruzen would end up killing it. Like, let's be honest here, it's a dragon, it's a massive threat to the village. Imagine if you, like, walked up and you saw this 9-tailed fox chilling in the village, and it was, like, almost dead, laying there on the floor, about to die, but you don't know if it's about to get up. You'd obviously, like, you'd want to take it out the rest of the way, making sure it wouldn't, like, deal any more damage to the village, or make it so that you might have to take it on in the future. So Hiruzen straight up kills this dragon, and he's just like, what do we do now? Like, they're like, the Hiruzen has never actually had to, you know, deal with the body of a dragon. It's a big thing. It's like, it's pretty big. And they also know that the dragon, with like the scales and the bones of it, are actually really good for creating swords and weapons and armor and everything like that. And because of the fact that they were at, like, a massive level of threat, they offer that the squad of, you know, Kakashi would actually get the dragon and be able to do exactly what they want with it, like make weapons and armor for their squad to become more powerful, and basically have a little advantage since they were the main, like, reason, or something weird happened, basically. They were the main, like, how am I trying to word this here? I don't really know. They were, like, the main, like, they were at the most threat from the dragon because they were right up next to it. So he figures, it's like, hey, I'll just be nice to you guys and be like, you guys can have the dragon. So they get this dragon, and Kakashi would, like, he'd be examining the body of the dragon, and he'd be like, okay, well, we can probably make, I'd say, we can probably make 2 armor sets and weapons out of this. I wouldn't say any more. Who is going to get them? Naruto would raise his hand and be like, I'm getting one. And Kakashi's like, well, what makes you think that you should get one? And Naruto's just like, well, you see, I have horns. That thing has horns. You put 2 and 2 together, I will have bigger horns. And yeah, that, and the reason that, like, Sasuke has the fucking 9 tails making, sorry, I said fuck again, I tried not to. Yeah, like, Sasuke has the 9 tails making him stronger. Sakura wouldn't be able to do anything with them. And then how about me and the other dragon bitch have them? And Kakashi's like, oh, well, I guess I can't argue with that logic. So he ends up being like, okay, whatever. We'll go to this master smith that's located in the village now, because obviously that'd be a thing now. They show up with the, you know, with the dragon, like, scales and bones and everything like that. They'd already managed to, like, cut it apart and, like, get it separated from the rest of its body. So they show back up and they're like, so, are you gonna be able to make some armor? Yeah, they would definitely, most definitely be able to make more sets of armor, but, like, I only want the 2 Dragonborns to have dragon armor, otherwise it wouldn't be a special thing, so that's why I did it like that. So they'd be like, the Master Smith would be like, okay, yeah, so I can make some different weapons for you, however, it's gonna cost you. And Kakashi, you know, he's just like, well, what exactly is it gonna cost us? Just give us a straight answer. And he's just like, let me see. How about, I don't know. How does the money system in Naruto even work? He's just like, yes, the cost of 1,000 bowls of ramen, or some shit like that. Actually, I have a better idea. Naruto would walk up now and he'd be like, well, there's a lot of dragon here, as a matter of fact, so I think that you make us 2 armor sets and 2 weapons, and then we'll give you the rest of the scales and bones of the dragon to sell to consumers and everything like that. The blacksmith would look up now and be like, wait, what? You're gonna give me the scales of a dragon? That's, like, imagine how rare that would be. It would, like, it would literally be, like, imagine if, like, you could, like, take, like, scales off of, like, the frickin' 3 tails. It would be like that. It would be like, really, you'll let me have them, eh? Yes, then, yeah, it's free then. So he ends up making all the different armor and everything like that, and that's why this picture of, like, in the thumbnail, that's what Naruto looks like. So Naruto gets this, like, massive fucking great sword, and he would be like, okay, he'd be swinging it around. It'd be pretty heavy, but, you know, his massive strength would be pretty used to it at this point. Like, come on, it's not much to Naruto. Naruto's a mega chad, so obviously he could pretty easily carry this big weapon. So he begins swinging it around, a few practice strokes, and he basically swings it against a tree. It cleanly chops the tree in half with pretty much no difficulty. Naruto's really surprised. He's like, oh damn, I wasn't expecting that to be so sharp. other dragon bitch would grab her sword, and she'd have a little bit more difficulty with, like, actually carrying it, but obviously she's pretty freaking strong, too. She's at a similar strength level of that to Naruto, and she'd begin swinging it around, too, and for some reason, they just have this natural affinity to use swords. Maybe it's something to do with, I don't know, plot armor? So they begin, like, swinging these around, a few practice strokes, and eventually, after probably about a week, or not even a week at this point, like, just, like, a really small amount of time would pass by, and they'd be able to, like, master these swords, because they're master swordsmen now, because plot armor. So they're like, oh, okay, cool, we got swords now. So the Chunin exams would once again start up. They would start with the actual, like the tournament part of it, because they kind of paused it for a while because of the fact that a dragon attacked. So they paused it for a while, now they're going to restart it up. Everybody, like all the teams that had actually already made it through were part of it, and they also allowed Naruto and his, on his squad to go through as well. So with that, because, they kind of got delayed just a little bit. So with that actually happening, they would begin the tournament. And we're just going to assume that all the other teams made it through for convenience and everything like that. So Naruto would fight Kiba. Kiba would be like, just because you got some fancy new armor doesn't mean you can defeat me. And he'd charge forward now, and he'd be like, what the fuck does he... I don't know what his attacks are even called at this point. He, like, Twin Fang! And he tries to punch Naruto. It would just ding off of Naruto's armor, and he'd get, like... He'd be, like, Kiba would be holding his hand. It's like, God damn, that shit is strong. Like, what are you wearing? And Naruto's like, oh, this is the first time I've actually had to, get to test this out. Naruto sheaths his sword, realizing he's probably not going to use it, reels his hand back, and punches Kiba. Just a single punch, probably about only like 30% of his power. This punch would be like a literal massive, like, sledgehammer hitting down against Kiba because of the massive strength that Naruto holds, along with the hardness of the actual armor. Kiba gets sent flying, and he gets sent flying into, the wall, and it basically turns into a crater, and Kiba falls down from it, bleeding from his face as he falls down to the ground, completely knocked unconscious. Naruto would be surprised. He didn't know his own strength. He didn't realize he was actually quite that powerful. He was pretty surprised by the fact that he was actually even able to do something of that sort. So he was pretty impressed by himself, so he would simply turn around and begin walking the opposite direction off of the stage. So all the other fights would begin, and, like Neji versus Hinata and everything like that. So we'll just say that, like, who the fuck would Dragon Bitch fight? Well, we'll say we'll say Ino wins her fight against Sakura, and then they're like, well, we need somebody to fight, so then they have Dragon Bitch fight Ino, and obviously Dragon Bitch would win, or Kohaku. She'd end up winning her fight. Like, come on, let's be honest here. She'd pretty easily win. It's Ino she's fighting. Like, come on, it's Ino. So, Kohaku ends up winning her battle, and the month break would actually end up happening before the actual, finals of the tournament part. So everybody would begin training during this time, and Naruto and Kohaku would actually train together, trying to master their swords, because obviously they're pretty good with them, but I'm gonna, retcon what I said, where they, said they're, complete masters. Like, they're not complete masters, they're pretty good, they want to master it now, though. So they begin training together, actually, having, sparring matches instead of just chopping trees down and cutting a rock in half. They begin, sparring with each other and everything like that. Then, during their fight, Naruto would get an idea. He concentrates for a second and focuses the flame or different, elements around the, around the sword. And it mixes together, merging together, creating a brand new element. This is not a freaking truth-seeking orb or anything like that. Or not a brand new element. It mixes together as all the elements would merge, not merge, but it would basically be all the elements would just be swirling around the sword and this weird vortex pattern. And Naruto would, signal for her to hold up her sword as a, kind of way to, do the thing. As Naruto just wants to cut down on it. See if it did any increase to his cutting potential, cutting power that he would have with his sword. So he slices down, and it literally makes a massive, he cuts her sword in half, and there's absolutely no damage to his. And he's like, oh, damn. So Kohaku would be looking at her sword now, and she'd be a little sad, and she's like, oh, well, I didn't exactly want that. And Naruto's like, well, I have an idea. And she asks what it is. And Naruto would be like, let's go back to that armor smith guy. So Naruto would walk up to him and he'd be like, hey, how much of that dragon bone and dragon stuff do you got left? And he's like, oh, all of it. Nobody in the village can actually like really afford it. And he's like, well, I have two things for you to do. One, I'd like you to repair her sword because we kind of cut it in half. And he's like, how the fuck, how did you cut a dragon bone sword in half? That's like, that should be like literally impossible. Naruto would show him exactly what he did, creating that same vortex of elements around his sword, and the blacksmith would be very impressed. He's like, oh, you're pretty strong, aren't you, kid? And Naruto's like, oh yeah, I'm strong. You know I'm strong, my guy. So, obviously speaking, Naruto would be, like, he'd be absurdly overpowered. Like, Naruto is he's just strong at this point. Obviously, Kohaku is going to be able to do that too before the end of the training would actually happen, because, you know, she gotta be strong too. Like, Naruto can't be the only strong person. I mean, like, come on. So, basically, this blacksmith would be repairing Kohaku's sword, and Naruto would walk up to him and ask him if he could make a shield as well. You know, like, since the sword was going to be a lot shorter because of the fact that Naruto cut it, it would be more like a short sword now, and he was asking if she could use a sword and a shield. So the blacksmith would be like, well, since you gave me so much of that dragon bone and stuff, I'll allow it. I'll be nice to you guys since you guys gave it to me. And he makes Kohaku a shield, and they'd all begin training with this, and Kohaku realized if she creates like a, you know, like a little like barrier of earth on her shield, it can deflect almost any attack, including that really powerful attack from Naruto that cut her sword in half. They continue training like this, and eventually they obviously would master all the different elements and master putting different elements on shields and swords and everything like that, before eventually the finals of the Chunin exams would actually begin. So with the finals of the Chunin exams beginning, Naruto would end up fighting Neji. Naruto absolutely thrashes Neji, but we will actually end up covering the fight just because, you know, I can. Naruto got pretty mad because Neji was such a little prick to Hinata, so he's just like, okay, I need to make this guy hurt. So Naruto enhances his basically hand, and because, you know, he can do that now, using the armor, he cannot burn himself with the elements. He makes it so that there's like a little bit of fire on the tip of his hand, and he simply touches Neji. He just kind of like pokes him. Neji obviously would be like, fuck, what is he doing? And he wouldn't feel anything at first, but then he feels a searing pain in his chest where Naruto just touched him, and he looks down and he sees that his shirt is on fire. He's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Ripping his shirt off, and Ten is in the background. She's like, oh, you can't defeat Neji. Oh, look at that. She'd be looking at Neji at this point. She's like, oh boy. And, you know, she starts bleeding out of her nose. She, like, falls over from the massive stream of blood coming out of it. She's like, oh, Neji, you took your shirt off. You were so hot, Neji. So, like, you know, that kind of thing would be happening. And Neji's, like, looking up in the stands. He's like, okay, I'm gonna pretend she's not on my team. So Naruto would be like, so Neji, would you like a little bit more of a taste of my power? Neji's like, please, you can't get anywhere near as powerful as me. Neji would be like, rotation, and Naruto would be like, okay, bitch, you really think that's gonna stop me? Naruto, watching Neji's hands move, because Naruto's just, like, really fast, so he can, like, he can pretty easily react to Neji's rotation. He grabs Neji's hand in the middle of the rotation, stopping the rotation altogether, before reeling back his left hand as it gets enhanced with lightning. He then slams it into Neji, sending him flying, and as Neji hits the ground, everybody's, like, expecting him to stand back up. But then they see a few sparks flying from Neji's body, as his hair kind of, like, basically sticks up on edge, as if electricity had hit it or something of that sort. They're like, oh, the fuck was that? Naruto walks up to Neji's body and basically rolls it over, revealing that he's in fact unconscious, laying there on the floor. Everybody's really surprised. They're like, the prodigy actually did that. How is that even possible? How is he such a thing? And, you know, everybody's pretty surprised by the fact that Naruto is able to, you know, defeat him so easily. So, you know, Kohaku would end up fighting somebody, but we'll cover that later. We're gonna get into the Sasuke versus Gaara fight, because, you know, I can. So Sasuke would begin fighting Gaara, and let's all be honest here, Sasuke would end up winning this fight. He's much stronger in terms of like everything, and along with the fact that he doesn't have to deal with the curse mark, along with the fact that he literally has the Nine Tails. So he's stronger in literally every way. So he'd pretty easily defeat Gaara. He takes him down and he pretty easily defeats him, as a matter of fact. So Gaara gets defeated. So the next fight would actually be Naruto versus, his other dragonkin person thing. They would begin fighting, and Naruto realizes that he's actually going to have to take this fight more seriously than he's taken literally any fight in this, tournament so far, because she knows all of his abilities and has the exact same abilities in defense. And can actually use defense, whereas Naruto just has this massive two-handed sword. So Naruto enhances his sword and shows her something that he hasn't actually used before. As the vortex slowly, or not slowly, but it basically gets like much bigger around Naruto's sword, and the sword basically gets like this massive vortex of elements that are completely surrounding it. As Naruto lifts up his sword and begins to strike up a pose, not like a pose like laying down, like like strike up a pose and get like drawn or anything like that. Okay, I'm just not gonna use that analogy anymore. He basically picks the sword up over his head, going down for an absolutely massive overhead strike. Kohaku would bring up her shield in response to this, obviously, and would be bracing for this impact. She'd never seen Naruto use this before, and she really hopes that Naruto can't just cut the shield. So Naruto basically would begin swinging down against Kohaku now. As Kohaku lifts up the shield as a block for it, Naruto that is actually only using one hand to swing this down. And Kohaku notices this, but it's obviously way too late by the time she notices this. As the sword strikes down against the shield, she pretty easily blocks it, as a matter of fact. She was expecting that. But then she feels a massive pain in her lower torso area, and she looks down, and to not even really her surprise anymore, she knew something like this was going to happen. Once she saw that Naruto was wielding the sword with only one hand, she looks down to see Naruto's hand as it punched her, and she realizes that this is probably going to hurt as she gets sent flying back. This is a full power punch from Naruto, and Naruto sent her flying, as she gets sent flying back into the wall, creating a pretty massive crater behind him, actually getting stuck inside of the wall. But it wasn't enough to knock her unconscious. She climbs outside of the wall and falls to one knee onto the ground, and she's panting at this point because that was a massive blow that Naruto just dealt. Naruto would walk up to Kohaku now and basically tells her, she's like, please just give up. I don't want to hurt you anymore. And Kohaku's pretty excited. She's like, yes, perfect, because Naruto's off his guard at this point. Kohaku enhances her hand and brings it up, slamming her hand into Naruto. Obviously, Naruto gets sent flying backwards by this because Kohaku's at a similar level of strength to that of Naruto. But Naruto took a lot less damage than Kohaku ended up taking for one simple reason. He's just stronger. That's all there is to it. So Naruto he'd be like, okay, you know what, fine. So Naruto enhances his hand as the vortex of elements would begin forming around it. Kohaku would do the same to her shield, and Naruto slams his hand forward, as Naruto would begin a barrage of punches, slamming his hands into the shield. The shield would dent slightly at every single punch, but it would not be enough to crack the shield, not be enough to break it. Every single punch would send massive amounts of force back into Kohaku's arm that was actually holding the shield, and eventually she would have to switch it into her left hand. Naruto was expecting this because of the massive amount of force he was putting behind each and every one of these punches. With one last punch, as the shield was getting switched, Naruto manages to actually land a blow on Kohaku before she's able to bring the shield up in time, sending her completely flying. This time, his hand was enhanced with elements, making it so that Kohaku got knocked out unconscious. Naruto, at this point really tired, would begin walking back to the stands, and they would have a little bit of time to rest, obviously. Kohaku would eventually wake up, but by this time, Naruto and Sasuke would actually be already fighting, with Naruto mostly recovered from the injuries that he sustained from Kohaku. It was mostly just stamina loss and not really much else other than that. So, Kohaku would be watching this fight take place, obviously, because, like, that's just what she does, and, you know. So, Naruto would begin fighting Sasuke. This is the very finals of everything, and both Naruto and Sasuke have improved massively from, you know, the time that they last really even saw each other, but before the month, you know, before the month gap between, you know, the finals and the next part of the exams. Sasuke is pretty impressed. He's like, I see that you've mastered the elements, Naruto, but I mastered something else. Sasuke would end up closing his eyes, and Naruto would be pretty he'd be anticipating what's about to happen before Sasuke unleashes a pretty massive aura of orange and red chakra. Naruto's really surprised, and he recognizes it. Or not really recognizes it, but he knows what it is. It's the Nine-Tails chakra. Sasuke gains a pretty good boost from what he was originally, and would begin charging forward towards Naruto, who would be having a difficult time reacting to the massive amount of force that Sasuke, you know, is able to use. So that Naruto is getting sent flying across the arena on multiple occasions and barely able to land any blows. Because, you know, he doesn't really want to use his sword. He kind of, like, that's something that he doesn't use, because you can't really kill somebody in the Chunin exams. You just can't really do that. He's so trying to use his, you know, hands as a method of blocking. He's able to block some attacks, but most of the attacks go through Naruto's defenses. Naruto has a lot of durability, but still, it would be an absolute massive amount of pain that he's feeling on all different parts of his body. Sasuke would basically begin walking slowly towards Naruto now, realizing that Naruto isn't even a match for him anymore. He would begin slamming his hand down into Naruto's back, sending him basically crashing down into the ground, repeatedly hitting down on Naruto's back, as Naruto creates a small crater in the ground. Naruto closes his eyes for a second, realizing that he has to do this. He has to win. If he doesn't win, what's the point of all of this? So Naruto stands back up once again, barely even able to stand, as Naruto closes his eyes before once again reopening. Now his eyes ablaze with fire, because, you know, I can. So with Naruto's eyes ablaze with fire, he actually stands back up, completely straight, seemingly uninjured at this point, as all the injuries around Naruto's body would begin to heal. And Naruto's like, okay, I can use this. As Naruto focuses even harder, a small amount of lightning, and then wind, and then earth, and then water, I guess you could say. I don't really know how, like, all the elements, like that vortex that was around his sword, would begin orbiting around all of Naruto's body, his eyes and everything, with Naruto's eyes being ablaze, with small amounts of electricity being shot out of them every once in a while. Sasuke would realize what Naruto is doing. He's enhancing himself, enhancing his muscles. This could be a dangerous thing, because of the fact that he's enhancing his body and not his armor or not some kind of weapon. He could accidentally kill himself doing this. But Sasuke realizes that Naruto knows he needs to do this. Sasuke realizes he cannot afford to hold back either. Unleashing a full tail of the Kyuubi chakra, Sasuke would leap forward towards Naruto now, who in response would also leap forward, both of them massively faster and massively stronger than what they were previously. Both of them, as they lash out at each other, massive barrages of punches going back and forth. They're pretty even at this point. The battle would go on, and eventually, Sasuke would lose the Nine-Tails chakra, because of the fact that obviously it doesn't really last too long without the cooperation of the Nine-Tails. As he falls out of the form, Naruto is about to deal this massive blow to Sasuke, and Sasuke was about to give up. But then, the aura around Naruto would also give out, as Naruto falls over to the ground, as his punch just barely misses Sasuke and he falls over, unconscious and simply exhausted. Sasuke is declared the winner of the battle, but obviously Naruto, Sasuke, and Kohaku all are promoted to Chunin because of their massively impressive shows in the Chunin exams. So, they are all promoted to Chunin, and they would continue on, you know, with their little ninja careers, their ninja lives. So, with that happening, the next part would actually normally be, you know, getting, sorry, can't talk right now, getting Tsunade to return to the village, but Hiruzen never dies because Orochimaru was gone. And then they'd go and get Sasuke, but Sasuke never got a curse mark, making it so that he never actually ended up leaving the village, so that doesn't happen either. So, the next the next likely thing that would actually happen would be the break before Shippuden, which is not actually going to be with Jiraiya training Naruto. Naruto would be training himself along with going on different missions and everything like that over this break. But that's where I'm going to leave this part off. I'll cover the Shippuden break and at least the start of Shippuden in the next part. I'll see you guys on the next part. Peace out. Bye.